Hello and welcome to another video of Coping in COVID for Renfrewshire's contribution to the Scottish Mental Health Arts Festival, FOOF. Today I have two young people from Erskine with me.
I'm Una.
And I'm Allie.
And we're going to talk about COVID, we're going to talk about the impact it's had on both of your life, and we're going to talk about education, homeschooling, any other kind of social activities that you've not had for a while, and we're just gonna have a chat about it. So, as I've asked everyone else, if we think back to the start of 2020, just before lockdown kind of started, we'd heard little whispers of this new virus. Were you aware of it at the kind of start of the year, and what did you think of it initially?
I didn't think it was like a big deal, I guess. Like, I thought it was just something that wouldn't really show up in Scotland or in the UK in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely was like just a joke. Like, everyone was joking about it in school, like, oh, COVID and all that. But I don't think anyone really worried about it too much, because you'd ask your parents like, oh, did you hear about this? And like, oh, don't worry, it's just a small thing, it won't come here.
Yeah, a lot of people we've spoke to through this kind of said the same thing, where they thought it might have been like, if you remember, bird flu, swine flu, and as much as that was over here, but people didn't think it was going to be a big thing, and it would pass. It's at the other side of the world. So if we fast forward, say we're a couple of months into 2020, it's March, start of March, and the first couple of cases in the UK started getting announced. Did that change how you thought about it at all? Or did you still think, oh, it's in England, it's not going to come up to Scotland? What were your kind of thoughts?
I just thought it was, again, like it was just in England, it wouldn't really come to Scotland, and if it did, it would be like 5 cases max, because I thought we would have had like more of an understanding of how to like be better with it because of what had happened in other countries.
Yeah, I don't really know how I felt, because I do get paranoid about a lot of things. So I was kind of like, oh, worried about this, and then telling other people, and the other people would, they'd be assuring me. What is it? Assuring me, just saying like, it's fine, like nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I remember I was actually here in our workplace at the time, and there was talks about, I think we were discussing, the staff here, about are we going to go into lockdown, and everyone's kind of thoughts when it was first announced is we're going to be in it for a few weeks and then that'll be us. Is that the same kind of thing you thought? Did you think it was going to last this long, or did you think it would just be a short kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. 2 weeks.
Yeah, same.
I know. And then it went on. So as it kind of turned out that this is going to be longer than a few weeks, it turned into a month, 2 months, and the best part of the whole of last year was kind of in lockdown. How did you initially feel knowing that that's what was going to be happening, that it was going to be a much longer period than a couple of weeks?
Probably, I think everyone at first, especially me, I was so excited because no school, getting off school, not needing to do that much. But I think no one really thought about long term at that time. I thought it was just going to be, a wee while off school,
And everyone looks forward to that. I think the same people with work that we've asked were like, are we going to be off work? Right, that's it, 3 weeks off work, that's it, and then we'll get back into things. What about you, Una?
I definitely thought it'd be like the same thing. Like, I wasn't too worried about it, because I knew like if I just stayed at home, I wouldn't really, I'd be fine. And I was like, nobody in my school's got it, no one that near like where we live has it, so we should be okay. And then that was not the case.
Yeah, and then that kind of, did any of you take up any hobbies or do anything during that kind of initial period? I know a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to learn an instrument, or I'm going to start sewing or crocheting. It seems to be a popular one. Did you start up anything, or what kind of things did you do?
I learned how to play the piano, and I got a ukulele, but I never learned how to play it because I got distracted by other stuff. So
it's easy to get distracted at home when you're kind of surrounded. What about yourself, Anne?
I learned to skate. I got a skateboard and a longboard, and I went out and just practiced every day. Yeah, it was definitely something to take my mind off everything. So
how did that continue, that kind of initial spark of, I want to learn something new, or did the realisation that this was going to be a bit longer, did that kind of drop off your excitement for learning something new? How did it kind of affect how you felt knowing that you're not allowed to go out and see your friends? All the activities, if you went to drama or dancing or anything, aren't happening. How did that kind of make you feel?
I think definitely I was on both sides, thinking about how it's starting to feel a bit overwhelming. Definitely mental health going downhill. But I think doing the things that you have learned over lockdown it did take your mind off of it, but you know, I was still definitely thinking about both things.
Totally.
Yeah. I feel like with me, like I missed like drama quite a lot, but then or even like doing piano, like as much as that was fun, I was like, when can I just get back to a theatre? When can I do things that's not just like sitting in my house?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people said that same kind of thing with us, that, you know, as much as these things were fun, you kind of miss some things that we take for granted, not because, you know, we take everything for granted, but little things like going to drama you expected to be on, or going to dancing. So Ali, was it quite interesting you mentioned that being able to do some of the things you had started over the initial lockdown period kind of helped you? Would you say that it's important to be creative and to force yourself to do things to keep your mental health good?
Yeah, definitely doing things that you wouldn't usually do, something new. It definitely motivates you to do more things, so maybe just doing that simple thing can, you know, make you think of doing something else, and it takes your mind off everything. Yeah.
Do you think of that?
Yeah, I feel like it's helpful to do stuff like that, because if you're stressed about something, you know, like if you're doing this, you won't be stressed about it. You'll be thinking of other stuff.
Yeah, and it's that I have that with guitar, and you kind of, if you're doing piano or dancing or whatever, you know, while you're doing that, nothing else really matters. And I know these things can seem like small things. People have said, like, just forcing yourself during lockdown to even wake up, get washed, get dressed, and sit down and do something seems like a wee thing, but it's actually, you know, quite a big thing, and it can lead on to quite big things. So after that initial period of lockdown, you're off school. Eventually, you know, they started homeschooling, started becoming a thing, and you just had to do stuff at home. Now, to someone sitting outside, not that everyone was went through the same thing in the world, but might think homeschooling sounds like a dream. You know, you get to be in your room, you get to be in your own house, you get to drink whatever juice you've got. I was going to say coffee, but I don't know if you're coffee drinkers. No, I'm just talking about myself. But you get to maybe study when you want. You don't need to go to school. You know, was it a dream come true to be able to study at home, or was it not?
It really wasn't, because like you were given the same amount of work as you would have had in school, expected to like teach it to yourself, I guess. And like teachers would give you it in like days. So like every single day you'd be getting like work, and you wouldn't even have the subject on that day, so you'd end up working for longer than you were meant to. And like you'd always get distracted by stuff as well. So like if you're just sitting there and you think, this is boring, I'll go do something else, and then you've not done any of your schoolwork.
Yeah. So how did you feel about, did you think there was a bit of a lack of support there from teachers, or did you just think that there was a lot of pressure to learn different things? As you said, maybe one of the good things about school is there is a routine throughout the week, but if you have all this piled on you, and you might be sitting there for hours doing one thing, or how did that kind of work for you?
I feel like teachers definitely could have like done more to have been helpful. Then I also feel like the teachers, like, they'd never had to do anything like this before, so like it's understandable that they didn't really know like how much work to give out, or like how much people could actually get done at home. So it's kind of like mixed. Some teachers were helpful, and then some were just like not even opening their emails.
Oh really? Ali, what did you think about the homeschooling at the start then?
Definitely at the start it was kind of an exciting thing, but when it got further into it, you definitely realise about, it might not just be me, but a lot of other people, some definitely rely on someone teaching right in front of you, rather than being given this work and having to figure it out yourself. You can ask for help, but a lot of people just don't have the confidence to do that, you know?
Yeah, and a lot of people might learn differently, I presume. You know, did you have like a online, obviously I've not been to school in quite a few years, and what was the kind of setup daily? Did you have online classes, or were you just given a lot of text to then go and learn yourself, or was there web chats, I'm an old person, were there video calls and stuff that you had as well?
Yeah, at first they sent out your work, definitely in the first lockdown they just sent out your work and said, do this is the page, this is the link.
Right.
Some of them were hard to find, some of them were easy to find. That I didn't really enjoy that, but in the next lockdown they did start doing video calls, which it did help. Like, they definitely thought of this and thought it would help, and it did, because it was obviously hard to ask on it because nobody was speaking. It was just you could understand why they weren't speaking, but the teacher did sit and explain the work speaking. You could hear them, you could see them. It did help.
What about you? Yeah.
At the start, like a few of my teachers were kind of good with getting stuff. So my maths teacher would just give us like textbook work to do. But if you had any questions, or like if you sent the work in and like there was a question wrong, he would like make a separate team with just you and him and like explain to you how to do it. like without speaking, but obviously it was like a lot easier because then it means you didn't have to like ask yourself, he just did it.
Yeah.
And then my physics teacher was really good because he would send out PowerPoints, we'd like speak over them,
Right,
so that
okay.
you could actually get him explaining it better, so it's like easier to understand. But it was mostly just written work to read over.
Yeah, and that's difficult. For one, I don't learn as well from just going over written bits. How I learn from watching people or listening to people talk. That's kind of how I learn. So when you were doing the video calls, what was that like comparatively to being there in person? Because as you said, there's lots of issues when you're on a web call. You might have a dodgy internet, or people are too scared to be the one person that speaks. Whereas in a classroom, you might be chatting to someone and be a bit more confident. How did it feel to sit in a call rather compared to the classroom?
It was like not very good because like you're sitting there and it's a bit more helpful to have someone explain it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a question, you don't, like you said, like you don't want to be the only person like unmuting yourself and asking something. And they just kind of were really awkward as well because the teacher would sometimes like ask a question and it's just dead silence and they're like, can I actually get a response? Are people listening?
Yeah.
People just like weren't showing up to them because they weren't that helpful, so it wasn't the best.
How did you feel about them?
I definitely at the beginning had a lot of nerves before going on one because some of the teachers would ask you to put your camera on, which for one I'm not comfortable with because it just makes me uncomfortable in general. I also did feel bad for the teachers as well because a lot of students just didn't want to speak, and some of the teachers would sit there in silence, and just wait. And for everyone it was awkward, but some of the teachers were very interactive and were very helpful with explaining the work, and they were like, you don't need to answer, it's okay, and it made you, feel a bit more better about going on a call. But some of the teachers just didn't put as much effort into it, which I can understand.
I think that's a good point you make there because I'm reasonably confident. I've learned that through college, through school, and through coming to the studio, EMMS, which of course Allie, you're going to start coming, and I know you've missed greatly, but we'll talk about that. But even I've done lots of video calls for work, and you do get a bit of anxiety before you go on them compared to even talking to someone in person. I get the same thing with phone calls. If you can't quite hear someone, how many times can you go, sorry, what was that? Before you just pretend you heard it. So I can totally understand that, it's nothing like being in a classroom that you're used to. It's a totally different environment. So talking about school, we've kind of went over some of the educational kind of downsides and drawbacks to the COVID. See, my mum calls it the COVID, which is why I've just said that. What about the social aspect? So school, as much as it's about education, a big part of it and a big part of you both learning as young teenagers is getting those social skills at school and be able to talk to teachers, but more importantly talking to other young people. How did it feel knowing that you were no longer allowed to go out and hang out with friends or go to school or anything like that? You had to stay in and just be with your family, even if family's amazing. You weren't allowed to socialise with friends. How did that feel?
At first it was kind of exciting because you've got social media, you've got the internet, you can call them, you can FaceTime, but after a while it does start to feel overwhelming, and I felt alone. I felt like I had no one to speak to, even with my family in the house. It just felt very depressing being in the house by yourself with no one to talk to. And even though your family are there, you may not want to speak to them at that point. You want friends to speak to. So that's how I felt.
Yeah.
The thing with having your family there is it just felt awkward at sometimes because you're not used to seeing your family so much. So after a while you kind of just run out of things to speak about, and it's just sitting in awkward silence watching TV together. With the friends thing, I definitely missed seeing my friends, because FaceTime is not quite the same.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously there's people who don't have iPhones, so they couldn't join FaceTime and stuff like that. It wasn't very good. And it can feel difficult to say without saying, I was sick of being with my family all the time. It's we love our family, but there's a reason we have friends, and there's a reason we want to go out and socialise with other people, especially people our own age. And as you said, FaceTime video calls are not quite the same. There's something that's quite hard to explain about being in the same room with person, breathing the same air as other people and friends. It's kind of like this invisible connection that you get with the soulful connection that you can get with people. Were there any activities that you had both originally been involved in that you could no longer? I know we mentioned acting very briefly, but what kind of hobbies did you have that stopped?
Oh, I don't know actually.
You went to loads of groups though, didn't you?
I did. Singing.
Singing.
For just now, I will want to continue that, but it's something that you just physically can't do. Like, you've been told you can't sing.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy singing, and it's just kind of not a thing that I'm able to go and do with like friends.
Yeah.
I can't go to singing class anymore.
What about dancing when you were doing that, and that all stopped? I know you've done a lot at home, but was that different to being in a class full of people and the energy with dancing with other people?
Yeah.
The only way I can relate to that is being at a club and dancing with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But how did it feel not being able to do that and having to dance on your own?
Yeah. It definitely turned my life around, because dancing is my life completely. Like, I've got it almost every day, and for me to not have it every day, it kind of felt empty, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't dance with my friends, it felt really weird not having it all the time, and doing it on college wasn't the same. You're feeling more anxious about going instead of being excited to go to dance, and it's more like nervous to go
and
to
I know
dance.
if you're doing it on your own, even in a web call, you feel a bit more singled out, don't you? And kind of, as you said, alone, so you don't have people to the left and to the right of you. Yeah, I got that right. I thought I'd done that wrong there. What about yourself, and what kind of things were you involved in that stopped?
I did like quite a lot of theatre. So the thing with that is, like, on a call it's really, really different, because normally in person you could do like movement stuff and like even just scenes were different, because you've got to be like, normally you can just kind of walk off the stage, whereas when you're sitting on a call you've got to like try find a way to make sure that you're not in this scene bit, but you have to have your camera on, and it's just sitting awkwardly looking at your face sometimes, like, oh, I can see that I'm acting, but I don't like the way I'm doing that, so then you just like get more anxious about it. That's
actually really good. I never even thought about that. Craig here jokes about it a lot. If there's a camera, I'm straight looking at myself, but when you're on a web call or something, you're kind of drawn your little faces in the corner. It's something you don't see when you're doing stuff face to face with people, unless you carry a bit of mirror. So talking about, is there any other groups maybe that you've missed out on that were really good? The crew, yeah. I mean, even I was talking to a few other people about this, that we used to meet once a week and we would do different activities and stuff in person. My finger's bleeding. We used to do different stuff, and even after a long break like that, even people that you've known really well. I remember, Ali is filming here behind the camera, he's not on shot, but I remember when I first seen Ali and other friends after this big lockdown period, I almost felt like they were strangers, and I didn't quite know even how to talk to people that I've known Ali for years and years and years at this point. I was like, this is daft, I'm acting like I don't know what to say. Did you feel like that when lockdown eased a bit, say it was the summer, and we could go back out? Did you find it a bit weird being back out with friends, or were you just like a duck to water and just right back in amongst it?
It was like fun, definitely, but there were times where I'm sitting there and I'm like, it's not the same as like anything we've just gone through for the past like few months. Because normally on a call, if something gets awkward, something will happen, whether it's like someone leaves, and then that happens. Whereas when you're sitting in person with people and it gets awkward, it's like everyone just looking at each other like, what do we do
and
now?
The longer it sits, the more awkward it gets.
Yeah.
How did you feel about being able to see friends again? Was it, obviously it was great, but were there some anxieties there?
It was definitely something you had to ease into, seeing your friends at first. It felt different, like, I can't explain it. Seeing them at first time, it just felt like you're looking at someone different. But when you started talking, hanging out a bit more, it definitely felt a bit more normal. But at first it just didn't feel the same.
Normal? There you go, back to the theme, almost like we'd rehearsed this. So we talk about normal all the time. Now I know really what is normal, but normal to us before the pandemic was, I keep saying coffee shops, as you could tell, I'm actually too old now to relate to both of you. Being able to go to, what do you do in your spare time? Like just hang out and walk about and skate and whatever. You could go out and do that, at the weekends you could go to friends' houses, you could go to the cinema or whatever you wanted to. So that was normal to us, at this part of the world. What do you feel about this new norm? So people are talking about, even now that we can go out to cafes and stuff, people are very anxious about it. People have maybe realised, for those that are working at home, that maybe they don't have to go to an office job all the time. They don't have to do a 9 to 5, 7 days a week or whatever. They can work at home and they can see their family a bit more. Do you think that there's going to be a new way that people look at the world and what we do? Or do you think we're just going to go back to the way things were? Or do you think what you want and what you think will happen are two different things? What are kind of feelings there?
I definitely think that things are going to have to change around the whole world, not just our country. And like, I think everything's going to change. Not everything. I think some things will go back to normal, but definitely even just wearing masks in shops. Like, who knows? It might not even stop. It might just carry on. It might be better for everyone. I know in some other countries they already wear masks in shops.
Totally.
And I think that's great. Like, I think they've got a great perspective on it all. So who knows? I think things will change.
What do you think, Una?
I feel like things will definitely change as well, because like, see, even with masks and stuff, like you said, like other countries have wore them the entire time.
Aye.
And like now looking back on it, it's like, why did we not wear them? Like, why did we go to the shops and not like why do we, you know, interact with people like that? Why did we do so much stuff that could be seen as like unsafe, I guess, to like get viruses and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we've spoke about it with your friends. I didn't get a cold for the whole of 2020. Did I? No, I didn't at all the whole year. And it's probably because we were, hand sanitising all the time, and we were wearing masks. And as you said, a lot of countries in Asia, they wear masks all the time anyway, either due to pollution or due to flu or something like that. So that's probably something that's second nature now. We've got a phone, right? My wallet, my keys, my mask. It's probably something that's going to be hard to not do. So what about attitudes towards mental health has been a big thing last year. I think even the strongest willed people have struggled with some of the lockdown. They've struggled maybe with a bit of depression, anxiety, stress about not being able to get out. Do you think attitudes towards mental health and how that should be treated is going to change at all?
I feel like it should. Like, I would like it to. I'm not sure if it will, but I feel like it definitely needs to, because I feel like people still view like mental health is such a thing that you can't really speak about it, or like it shouldn't be spoke about, whereas like it's a normal thing that everyone kind of experiences.
Totally. Yeah. What do you think, Allie?
I think that they are gonna, like everyone, I think everyone's gonna be a bit more open-minded about it, especially in schools. Schools have been talking about it so much more than they used to. It's been a big thing. You go to your, what's it called, registration class. It's the only thing they speak about now. They want to see how you feel and how that they can change things. So I'm hoping that it will change, and I'm hoping it will be a bit, a bigger thing.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that it's a shame to say that good things have come out of this pandemic, because a lot of people have been very unfortunate, have lost friends and family and loved ones. But I think this open talk about mental health is something that's changing, and people are starting to talk about it, and that's half the battle. If anyone's struggling with their mental health, the first step is just to say to someone, I need help, or I need to talk about this. So just before we finish, looking to the future, as I said, stuff's starting to open now and lots of people are finally being vaccinated. Are there any things that you're really looking forward to getting back to doing?
Definitely going back to the cinema. It's like one of the things you miss the most, like just the feeling of like you're walking in and you can see all the steps and you're waiting for the movie. It's just more fun.
Definitely. I actually miss the cinema as well. Quite a big cinema goer, especially if there's a new horror movie out. And it's not quite the same at home on a small TV unless you sit that close to it. What about you, Allie? What are you looking forward to most?
I'm looking forward to having dance shows.
Of course.
Because it's like, it's a work up through the year, and then it's like, the big show.
Yeah.
And it's, it's the buzz, it's the excitement behind the stage, getting ready to go on stage. It's so exciting, and not having that's kind of.
I was actually speaking to some friends about that. We really missed some of the dance shows this year, and the school you go to, you go to Youngstown Stage School, and always kind of falls in October, is it? It falls?
Yeah.
And it used to be something we really looked forward to, and it had a bit of a buzz, so totally getting back to that kind of thing. Are any other kind of things you're looking forward to? Any hobbies going back?
Coming back to crew.
Coming back to what?
Coming back to crew.
Oh, Erskine Arts. Lovely. Yeah, so be able to get back to doing all these kind of things face to face. I think no matter what you're interested in skating or drama, it's going or crew. It's going to be really good to get back to. Thank you both so much for taking your Saturday to sit and speak to me, and I hope you have a good weekend, and thanks again.
No problem.
Bye.